Hey guys, today I want to talk about whether or not the market has bottomed, and I'm not just talking about Bitcoin, I'm talking about altcoins too. Obviously, not 100% sure, nobody can be, but this is the first time I'm starting to express some pretty strong, cautious optimism here. Let's talk about why, especially in light of this $1.5 billion hack of Bybit, which is a colossal centralized exchange. Let's just review the number one signal we have about whether a market is bottomed or topped, aside from on-chain stuff. If you haven't looked at on-chain signals for Bitcoin topping, they are all still ice cold. They were ice cold over here at the top, and now that we've gone sideways for several months, they're still cold. But the number one thing that will tell you whether or not we've topped or bottom, we've talked about this before, is just does good news stop pumping, and does bad news stop dumping, right? This should, if you've seen these videos, this should be familiar to you before, but we've had kind of a big update here, so let's talk about it. Just reviewing real quick, because this is very much worth keeping in context. On the good news stop pumping us front, kind of like vaguely up here, but let's talk about more recently up here. We had three insanely bearish things that happened literally back to back to back. We had the Trump generational meme coin rug with his coin and Melania. That alone could top a market under different conditions. Then we had the DeepSeek Black Swan FUD, which is, this Chinese startup is just gonna destroy the US AI industry, and stocks shit the bed for a second. And that didn't dump us too much, not even to the range midpoint. And then finally, back to back to back, we had the Trump global trade war ignition during a liquid weekend, tariff palooza 5000. It took three plausible, could top any cycle in different conditions, back to back to back, to finally not only get us to range lows, but this is just a wick and a V recovery, right? So, bad news didn't really do the trick to get us out of this range. On the other hand, and this is also equally worth paying attention to, we had really good news that, again, up here didn't pump us any further, which was just infinite regulatory good news. You had strategic Bitcoin reserve stuff solidifying. You've got 21 states looking at buying Bitcoin for reserves and stuff, different funds. Then you had, I think Abu Dhabi or one of the Emirates, coming out and go, we've bought hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, and that's obviously a strong presence for the kind of sovereign wealth FOMO thesis that is something that could take Bitcoin to 150, 200 grand and way beyond that down the road. So, that didn't, this stuff here, it took three of those things to wick us here. This stuff here didn't continue to pump us. So where are we today then? We had this week the biggest hack in crypto history. Actually, it may have been the biggest heist in finance history. I think. I don't know that 100% sure, but that's what I'm hearing. It kind of checks out. When was the last time you heard of a robber or a hacker stealing $1.5 billion, right? I can't tell you, right? We've had kind of like Bernie Madoff Ponzi stuff, where a lot of people lost money. We've had like, Enron style fraud and this and that, but like we've never had anything like that. And if you didn't know when that happened and you were looking at this chart, right, you'd think, okay, the biggest hack in finance history, we'll just say crypto history just to, be a little more on the nose here, but like, where would you guess this happened in this chart, right? Like, was it this dump? Was it, must have been this dump, it must have been one of these, like, 15 grand dumps. I couldn't have been this. That's not big enough. Ooh, you know what? Yeah, that looks like it could have been it. No, it wasn't any of those. It was this. The biggest heist in crypto history was this little daily kind of just reversal of the pump prior. And then we're actually up quite a bit. And we're just like above the range midpoint now here that I drew. And so that's insane. Like, that is the most just hysterically, heinously bearish thing I've ever heard since FTX, like, kind of low key. And this is literally just kind of noise. Like, we've had, you can draw one of these like every 3 days. Like, we just, like, literally every other candle is that big, right? To the downside. I mean, I'm going to run out of pixels and paint, trying to circle all these. But like, you wouldn't be able to pick that out of a lineup. So it's like, if the biggest heist in finance history or crypto history did this and then just mean reverted, what does that tell you about where we could go next? They always say like these things are always in the charts, and if this was in the chart or whatever, like, that's magnitude of hack just kind of being a nothing burger. Granted, like, credit to how Bybit handled it. They appear to, as of me recording this, be solvent. They processed all the withdrawals, like, so huge credit to them. But still, like, before we knew they were solvent, and after we found out it was North Korean hackers, i.e. that money's gone forever, that's all we got. And that kind of gets me bold even more the fuck up. Let's do like a very, very quick history lesson, and then I want to move on to like a chart that kind of exemplifies the fact that alts might be bottomed here too. We'll look at a couple charts, but very quickly, let me reset this chart. Let's throw it back to previous cycle. So let me zoom in a little bit here. So we topped here, right? And then, we had this dump, then chopped down, huge dump, right? Like, the dumps we're talking about here are like a couple grand to 10 grand. This is 59K or like 60K down to like almost 40. That's like a 33% drop. That's 20 grand. Like, these are enormous. These are enormous nukes. These are way bigger wipeouts than anything we've seen this cycle. And in terms of like current events here, these dumps, like, these were like, granted, this is in the backdrop of like kind of risk rolling over, but we had Luna blowing up, which is, billions of dollars gone, and like, this sort of algo stablecoin Ponzi. We had Celsius blowing up, which again, this is like a huge centralized DeFi kind of like loan thing where all the messaging was like, hey, deposit your money here and you can get like free yield, and it's going to be about as safe as it gets. Like, a lot of the messaging around it made a lot of people think it was risk free. We have Three Arrows Capital blowing up, which is, multi-billion-dollar fund. And, these all just happened back to back, and the market just absolutely ate shit. Um, and this is just kind of like dominoes tipping over, one thing leading to another, and then, we had this wipeout here. I forgot exactly what order these happened in. And then you had literally by, a factor of 10x, the biggest calamity in crypto history easily. You had FTX blowing up, and just, this is connected with all these politicians in DC, all these celebrities, Tom Brady, ton of people in the US had like their net worths in this. This is just, especially with the political embarrassment this caused, like basically like any goodwill crypto may have had among anybody in DC is now flipped on its head, and it's a huge embarrassment for all these politicians. And now they have just unlimited political capital and just a huge incentive just to like make crypto as illegal and shit on as possible. And you have to wonder, like, okay, which one of these massive like 30-50% dumps was FTX, right? It had to be maybe this final one here that was like, 32k down to 17k, and it wasn't. This was FTX, right? This again, it's just like, 20k down to 15, 25% drop or whatever, but like kind of just like noise, like we're kind of like a noise level drop at this point. And this again goes back to like, once bad news stops dumping, bottom is either in or almost in. And if the biggest calamity ever was just this little like whatever drop, then like I remember being on the timeline here and going like, this has got to be it. Like there's no way that we're going much lower than here. A lot of people were calling for 12k, which is like the greediest, most delusional bear thing ever. And like those people just got, left in the dust. So moral of the story here is like, that's really bad. This Bybit hack isn't this bad, because Bybit appears to be solvent as of the recording of this, but it's like, it's in the same ballpark. It might be in the nosebleed seats of that ballpark, but it's there. So we come back here to present day, and sorry, I don't know how to use charts because I'm an idiot. And we'll zoom right back in, and there it is, right? Like, you had these just insanely like could have topped it all things that ended up bonking us down to here. Pretty big drops, pretty substantial drops, but it took a lot, which says a lot too. And we had this, and it was just like, not much. So, it might not be the bottom. There's good reasons that we could just keep crabbing forever. We could eventually like drift down here. Like, I'm not assigning like 100% chance to us going up from here, but like it's kind of my base case is like either just kind of back up, or maybe like a crab and then up, or maybe like a drift down and then up. I only assign like a single digit percent chance that we do anything down here, let alone lower. Looking at alts, not to toot my own horn too much because this was kind of a shit post, but I put out a tweet on February 9th, kind of at the top of this wick, where I said, what would you do if I told you alt season started 45 minutes ago? And Bitcoin dominance since then has just been going down. Had like a recovery pump here that freaked people out, and is just like down again, right? This isn't alt season. To me, alt season doesn't happen until the magnitude of this drop is like completely undeniable. And what does that look like? Um, this chart is just an absolute mess, forgive me. But like if you zoom back out to like, almost 3 years ago, um, you can kind of like draw like some sort of a channel here. This is just going to be really sloppy and off the cuff. Let's do one of these, right? We'll delete some of this, some of this, some of this. And, I'm not calling for, like, alt season starts, I guess, the moment Bitcoin durably rolls over, which may have been this green arrow, but it doesn't like feel like alt season, or alt season isn't like expressed in the charts in a way that's like really fun and juicy and like broad pumpy and holy shit, my portfolio is up 100% week over week, until you get something that is probably gonna look like this, right? Where like around here, below here, once we're like out of this like generous channel here, is when it's gonna not only look real and be like more than just noise, but it's gonna start to feel real. And there's a chance there's like a deviation here, and then we come back up and like, alts go not only to zero but to the negatives, and you like get arrested and put in a debtor's prison if you own alts. But I don't think we get another fake out. I think the next time we go below this trend line, that's a wrap, and we'll probably go down somewhere into the 40s, I would guess. But on the daily zoomed in, like, this just isn't a downtrend until proven otherwise. So we'll see. In terms of like what specific alts are doing and why, I don't think we're out of the woods, but I think that if you want to make a high conviction bet on downtrodden alts that have some sort of like survival grade traits to them, why now is starting to feel pretty good. Here's a coin I tweeted about the other day, and I picked up like a bigger position in. Still like very, 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 very small position. Is Michi. Like this chart is heinous. Like this chart usually, like, to be clear, you see a chart pattern like this usually goes to zero. But on a like asset by asset basis, if you kind of get deep in the context here and don't get too lost in the sauce, like, these charts can sometimes come back. I made a little bit of a bet here, but I'm not trying to shill Michi. I, again, don't own too much of this, but I just want to point this out, this phenomenon, and you can apply this to a lot of charts. So you have a clear downtrend here, which like you buy anywhere in here, like, oh, we're back. Nope, knife catch. Oh, we're back. No, knife catch. Oh, we're back. Knife catch. Knife catch. Clear downtrend. Then you had like the Tariff Palooza weekend of fear, panic, and despair, February 1 to 3. And this chart just like went below even this like bottom right here. And like this chart is just absolutely like almost irredeemably bad beyond that, right? That was kind of like the last moment. But you had this like final dagger twisted in the heart of alts, Tariff Palooza, where most people got shaken out of most stuff. If, people who were going to sell, at least. I'm sure a lot of people are still holding and round tripping. But then you come down here, and again, like zooming in a little bit here, you then have a bottom that gets put in here, get like a little bit of a tenuous recovery. And then this is kind of like the February 16 to 18, like Solana is cooked forever. The SEC is going to start to make like a digital crime unit, which is just like, and a bunch of other stuff with these like soul shillfluencers, vape cabal people. It really came to a head. And this is like the absolute just bedrock floor, sort of like inverse apex soul sentiment darkness. And what happened to Michi? and this is a pattern that played out on a lot of like alts and memes that I think have a chance of coming back. It didn't put in a new low. It kind of just swept and then immediately started curling back up. And I bought some at like 0.031 or something in here once I saw that like Sol sentiment was at the bottom. And Bitcoin dominance was kind of like still suppressed. And obviously it's up, 1.5x or whatever, almost 2x here. That's not important. What's important is just the pattern here is you had just like this grind down into like this capitulation hell. And then sentiment on Solana, just like people are just like throwing in the towel on the chain. It's all full of scammers. It's just like horrible for culture. The SEC is going to investigate these guys. And then just like a dip for ants and no new low, and then a grind up right away, like hours to days later. Like, despite this chart pattern being objectively atrocious, like I'm taking a little bit of a punt here, right? And in terms of like fundamentals of what I like to do for myself, I usually am not buying this chart, but in the context of the fact that I personally have conviction that we still have a ton of the bull run left to go. I don't think Bitcoin is going to top until like bare ass minimum 120, 130, arguably way higher, just conservatively 120, 130. Macro conditions are going to hopefully flip. Quantitative tapering is ending. We're above the terminal rate, blah, 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 blah. All the reasons you have to be bullish. Bitcoin dominance is high. On-chain is cold. Social signals have been cold. And then, this asset, is like a small cap, but has, let's see if I can spell this, transcended, being a pure on-chain shitter. It's on Kraken and Bybit, which are like, tier 1 exchanges. At least Kraken, it's like a big US exchange. If you're on Coinbase, Gemini, and Kraken, and Robinhood in the US, like these are the big four. And, it's like, you're in like the NFL playoffs. If you're a coin, you get listed on these as a trend shitter. And Bybit is just like talking about Michi nonstop, right? So I think, there's something to like there for this coin. But anyway, I don't want to get too lost in the sauce here. This is a high risk play. Generally, what I want to see on these is just a whole hell of a lot more sideways than that. So we're in like true time-based capitulation. And like this doesn't just like, turn into like kind of one of these and then just like eat shit and just goes to zero. Another way to play this that is arguably way less risky than that is or way less risky than buying here is you just wait for like a reclaim of this like low here, a retest of that maybe, and then like back up here. You could kind of like buy somewhere in here or up here. And then just hope, you're not buying the top of like an echo pump and then the whole market goes to shit. But yeah, again, it's like sizing's really important. I own barely any of that, but I really just bring this up to bring up the fact that like, alts are kind of bottomy. Like I haven't looked at this here in a bit. This isn't quite as juicy, but like, you see WIF kind of like putting in a bottom here. You got like the February 1 to 3 meltdown to this wick, same thing, right? And then you kind of get like a reclaim in here, back up potentially. No guarantees. Popcart, pull a better chart than that. You have kind of the same here on Popcat. Again, you have like this February wipeout. I think a lot of people are buying this like kind of Coinbase stuff here. Then you have like the Solana is permanently cooked. Sentiment like pendulum swung too far, but like no new low here, right? A little bit of like a reverse. Popcat doesn't look as strong as it did a couple days ago, but again, these like bigger coins that have like broad listings and like big communities and have some sort of like attention escape velocity. You want to see a little bit more of that, and then maybe a range reclaim. But if you got the balls or ovaries to buy here, because you just like been in the space and you aren't like a delusional bag holder, but you're like, hey, I'm taking calculated risk with appropriate size. Like, this is kind of starting to get interesting. Again, you don't need to rush into this. You don't need to do anything at all. But overall, I'm just looking at the fact that there's a chance that if not here, sometime soon, it just feels like alts are bottomy based on charts, based on technicals, based on plums. But ultimately, up to you. If I were advising, a friend or something, I would probably still say like, hey, don't rush into anything. Definitely not on-chain stuff. Buy quality. But that's it. Real takeaway is that Bybit getting hacked for like the biggest hack in like world history. Short of like some fucking like Phoenician Sumerians getting their like mud brick castle in the year -5000 like pillaged for all its gold coins and seashells. Like, this is the big one, and it did almost nothing to Bitcoin, and it got retraced, and we're above like this kind of like range midpoint. So we're not out of the woods by any means. Anything can happen. Just make sure you have a plan, play things according to your own risk levels. But me personally, I am with cautious optimism, getting a little bit bowled up, and next few weeks are going to be interesting. We'll see what happens going into this like QT ending thing, and other macro data that's set to get released. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.